before I cross over. Oh, what I really want is just the truth to come out so everyone will know what happened out there and, you know, at the Blue Horizon, and because no one knew about it. I didn't want to know about it, I don't know. We get up in the morning, have a watch, get ready and that, and all we had back in them days was just sand shoes, you know. You know, the white sand shoes. And have brekkie and that, and never felt the cold. I never ever felt the cold, or slept cold, you know, and yeah, I was sort of used to the cold because we was in the scrubs, you know what I mean? Used to walk to school from there down across Butchers Creek and up through Cantles and Teddy Smith's property. But we didn't mind, you know, we used to make it to school in time and home in time, make sure we home before dark, Mum said, otherwise the old people would be following us home from down the creek, you know, Butchers Creek. We was home that day, you know, like doing nothing, just playing around the bloody yard and that, and, you know, helping around the yard, and that's about all, you know, and till the boys stand up there and they come for a walk over there, you know, sent to go and get swan eggs and that, you know. Mum said, well, Bill and Frankie go with Bob and Alec and Steve and Robert, you know, and get some eggs for us too, you know. Yeah. We're going to go down to the mouth of the Tambo. There's a great big swamp down there, a big lagoon, big one. And I said, no, we go down here, it's closer down to Blue Horizon, you know, it's just down here to go over a few fences, but it was a lot shorter than going down towards the Tambo, you know. And so we ended up going down there and got down the swamp, walking around and looking around, and you see how many eggs in the nest. And there might be 5, you know, you'll take 3 and leave 2. Yeah, like that, you know, and then you wash the nest down where you tramp around on, so someone will go back and lay on them, mate, you know, yeah. So we had to do that, and old people told us that, you know. Yeah. We had a nest and Bill got the egg down, and that's when he said, gee, a lot of teeth in here, but you know, and everything cracking under our feet everywhere we step, you know. You'd been walking on these ribs and that, you know, and bones cracking under your bloody feet, and, you know, saying, yeah, a lot of teeth in here, bud, you know, yeah. And I looked at Bob and he was bending down like that, see, and I didn't see what he picked up or whatever, and all he said was, get out of here now, move, move, he was singing out, you know. Moved, and he was ploughing through the bloody lagoon, you know, and so we took off too, run, thinking, yeah, he must have picked up a skull, you know, because Dad said over that side there when we had to cut across Butchers Creek, they call it Butchers Creek, there was a lot of our people murdered there, slaughtered, you know, yeah, see. But no, I just felt real, you know, it was something, I thought it was spirit straight away, you know, yeah. So that's why we moved fast too. Bill must have felt a bloody safe, you know, but we never talked about the other boys, you know, they the cousins, you know. What did they feel?
Have you ever been back to that spot?
No. Yeah, this is the spot. Yeah, me and Bill was over in that corner there. Bob was out here in the middle. So I always wondered, you know, why, with the massacre sites, why there weren't any numbers, you know, how many were shot out here, you know, murdered, right? Why, you know? Was there that many there? Was too many for them to put a number on it, or what? I don't know, you know. I just don't know. Soon know what Peter Gardner, what he's got to say about it, you know. Well, this is it, eh? Oh. I'll show you the lagoon, mate.
Okay,
Yeah,
go and have a look at it.
down here, mate, yeah.
All right, it's quite clear there now, isn't it?
Yeah, mate, it's clear, all right, yeah.
So whereabouts were you swan egging?
Some had the nests on the side and
Yep.
up around in that area.
Right.
Yeah,
So the thesis is that it could have been a massacre. Is that it?
yep,
Well, you can sort of point in every direction if you
I
like.
know.
So
Yeah.
behind Bairnsdale there's the Lindenow Skull Creek, and then over behind Meetung you've got Butchers Creek.
Butchers Creek,
And
yeah.
then if I get me directions right, Boomerang Point on the other side of the
Yeah.
lake was called Slaughter Point by the fishermen. Now, the academics talk about a massacre site has to be 5 people killed or more.
That's right, yeah.
So Butchers Creek behind Meetung there was probably 30 or more.
Yeah,
And of course, Warrigal Creek in South Gippsland, a long way away, that was huge.
yeah.
But the numbers, if there's less than 5, well, just imagine if someone got shot 5 people now. It'd be
right.
in the headlines across the paper.
Oh,
wouldn't
yeah,
it?
yeah.
So, but I calculated that there was probably 30 places across Gippsland where there's not, they're not recorded because
Not
they were
recorded,
just,
that's right.
for the Europeans, they were small time affairs.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I doubt that that's a massacre site, but the story of dragging the bodies
yeah.
is not new.
No,
So,
that's right.
so at Warrigal Creek, for instance, they were all killed by a big waterhole, and then the Chief Protector of Aborigines, George Robinson's coming through 18 months later. So they gathered up the bones, and the stories are that they had cartloads of bones,
Yeah,
and they carted them 5, 2, 3 miles to the sandhills and buried them in the sandhills. The bodies being disposed of was common, I think. We just
Yeah.
don't know. We just don't know the stories because, of course, they were all kept secret. Yeah.
Niece had this wonderful gift from the old people. She was told it by a special priest. There was 2 in Australia. One was in Sydney and one was in Lakes here. And he told her she will be gifted in about 6 years. She used to go to church all the time. And he said, you'll be gifted with a wonderful gift from the old people, from the spirit world. Yeah, Thursday afternoon she come up and she said, oh, we're having a prayer meeting out at the hill, this young bloke, Jimmy Broomfield his name was. We just sat around in a big circle inside and she started praying for Jim, and he just hit the floor and lady tried to fight, and she said, "Don't fight it, son." She said, "Let the Holy Spirit go through you and you will be healed." And then she started singing in unknown tongue, and I never heard anything so sweet. I never ever. And I just brought tears to my eyes, and I think everyone else was too, and to hear her singing. And then it got loud and louder as it came right up, and I can hear, and I was thinking, "Geez, I sound like the old people." I was about so far away from, foot away from the big slide door, and it was moonlit night, no wind, nothing. And when I got close and all the stamping, I can hear them stamping, the spears hitting together. I looked around, I thought I'd see if they'd showed it, but they never showed. And then Phil started talking in their tongue. And it was so, all the spears written together and all the stamping and all the racket outside. And she started talking in their tongue, and then I can hear her slow and right, she talked and talked in their tongue. And Mrs. Bottom said, "She's talking in some Latin language." And I said, "No." I said, "She's talking to the old people. They're right here now." I said, "Right at the door here," I said, And then she come to, he helped her sit up, and he sat her up in the middle, and she looked around everyone. She said, "I'm telling each and every one of you here in this room," she said, "I went way, way back in time," she said. "There was a lot of bad men on horseback. Great big horses," she said. "Dull, dull, 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 dull," she said, pumping the lead into them. She said, "They were dropping everywhere." And she said, "Little ones," she said, "they were bashing them over the head with the butts of their rifles," she said, "trampling on with the horses," she said, "and they were tying rope and dragging 3 and 4, she said, that big lagoon down there, that one down there," she said, "the real big one." She hadn't been out there in her life or ever knew about the blue rice, never ever. And you cannot see the swamps from the road, you cannot see them, the lagoons, none of that. And you tell you all about it.
Of course, the Western mind tends to think of time as a straight line. There's the beginning, there's the end up there somewhere, and we're moving in a sort of unidirectional way through this spectrum, this timeline. Aboriginal people don't think about time that way. Some people say Aboriginal people think about time cyclically, so we're very tuned into the cycles of the seasons and that sort of thing. I think that's true. But underneath all of that, I think there's actually this understanding that what white people would call the past, the present and the future are actually all accessible from a particular moment. Because a lot of traditional cultural knowledge has been destroyed by colonisation, sometimes these things just come upon you because you don't actually know the rituals that get you there more regularly anymore. But Aboriginal people still have these experiences, despite all the sort of colonial destruction of culture, of suddenly finding themselves with the old people, or indeed with the old people in their own country if you've been taken from your country. So it's a displacement not only in time but also in space. And in that moment, you hear someone speaking to you or trying to get a message to you, and that message may not even be in a language that you understand anymore, because again, much of it has been lost or destroyed through colonisation. Nevertheless, you understand the message. All of this shouldn't be possible if we live in a sort of Western version of the rational universe. None of this should be possible. But over and over again, in many different places, in many different times, in many different Indigenous communities, these kinds of experiences are reported.
Hey, Dick, you got enough? Good, mate. Hey, man, how are you?
Good, how are you? That's good. You're right there. It would have been 2007, 2008 when I had all those archaeologists come down from Melbourne. Do you not know about that? Never heard about it? Well, they were coming to my cafe that I had there in Meetung. So yeah, it would have been 2007, 2008, I think. And yeah, and they came down like 15 at a time, and they were all excited, and they were coming in, and yeah, I said to them, I said, oh, well, what are you digging for? Oh, we can't tell you that. I'm like, oh, okay. Where are you digging? And they said, oh, out at Tambo Bluff or Blue Horizon.
The fact that they weren't anxious to tell you what they were digging for
Mm.
proves, I think it proves pretty conclusively that they were obviously digging for Aboriginal artefacts
Yeah.
or bodies.
Yeah. Well, that's what I heard them talking about then. After they said, oh, we can't tell you. And especially the way they reacted. It wasn't like they'd done quite a few digs and, oh, my God, they were just over the top excited. So they were probably students, finishing off their degrees and, yeah, doing some practical digs.
Yeah.
Why they were down here, I have no idea. But, yeah, it seemed like a very good dig because they were all ecstatic. Every time they came in, there was just this buzz of what they were finding and, oh, my God, and... and then talk about bones and artifacts and how many, and it was just unbelievable. Like they'd never seen anything like
That's
it.
the trouble with this stuff. You never know who wants it. They'll be in some bloody museum somewhere.
Yeah,
probably.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
that's right, mate.
Yeah, but it's very sparse out there. It's not a place that I'd ever go and buy a block when they were selling them. They were selling a good sized block for about $5,000 or $7,000, weren't they, Dad?
They couldn't get rid of them.
And they were trying to raffle them in the end because no one really, which is really odd because no one wanted,
Just trying to get rid of them, yeah.
yeah, to go back there, and I understand why. And I've been there out there and spent a lot of time there with my friends that lived out there. But it's not a, I don't know, there's something about it that doesn't make me feel all that good. Yeah.
No, that's right.
Yeah. So Jonathan, he was one of the first people out on Blue Horizon, Jonathan Smith. So I used to go with Dad out there when I was about 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's been there ever since. He's still there.
He was the only house there for many years.
So he'd probably know. He'd be a good person to talk to. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was great talking. Yeah. Always lovely to have a chat.
It'd be great to hear some.
Well, thanks for having us.
No worries. Take care.
Yeah, you too, mate.
Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah. See you later. See you next time.
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
With the Blue Horizons, a big part of that story for you is to find out the truth.
The truth to come out into the open. I really do. We don't want the land or the houses or whatever's on there now, It's just what really happened to our old people.
What we do know, or what we can assume, is that there's a cultural heritage management plan that was done to develop the site.
Yeah.
So I approached the archaeological company. I've emailed them and I haven't had a reply, and I've called them a few weeks later and they said they'd get back to me, and they haven't. So I've been in touch with a university who does coordinate students to go on placement for archaeological digs. Initially she was really, really helpful. She got on the phone, she said let's do a Zoom meeting, she shared her computer screen with me and went through, a cultural heritage map. It's a public map, so we're seeing the public version of this. So what she sort of explained was all these little green circles are called buffer zones, and buffer zones is where they've dug and they've found something. That could be an artefact, that could be remains, we don't know what it is. She said by the look of this, it's for a subdivision, it's for the development of that land, that they've done that. But she was quite surprised how many buffer zones there were in that spot. So this is the lagoon here, is that right, Frank?
Yeah.
By the end of the conversation, she said, I think I might have done the research on that dig myself. And we thought that was a bit strange to say that at that time, at the end of the conversation. So she said she will find out as much as she can and get back to us. Then I got an email the next day, basically nothing, can't help, can't do anything. We've approached Glawak. We've waited for them. It's busy, there's COVID, Christmas, we understand all of that, but maybe it's not a priority at this point in time for them. I don't know. But the silence is deafening. And we can only, the deeper we dig, the harder it's getting, and there's not many people that are wanting to speak about this. So we're just going to have to find another way. One of the questions that I have is Blue Horizons and Tambo Bluff, are they the same?
The Blue Horizons was the name adopted by the developer in 1960.
Okay.
And we, it might have been in use before that, I don't know. But we tried to get away from it because of it had connotations of the horrible development. Do you know Hal Todd? You're too young to know Hal Todd. He was a TV personality on Channel 9. And, he used to advertise them on the telly blocks out here. So people, if you bought a car from a car dealer in Richmond, you got a block of land out here with it. And people had this land often for decades, and they hadn't even seen it, didn't know where it was. And you'd find them all the time wandering around looking for the pegs, survey pegs. There was
Oh wow.
At the time, it was sort of a bit controversial because the archaeologist had quoted $30,000 for the survey, and then it came in at $300,000, the bill, and it took them a couple of years, and it held up the groundworks here that were going on for the sewerage and infrastructure. So the Shire were in breach of contract because of the time delay. So it was quite an expensive exercise. The archaeologists cleared a section at a time eventually to allow the work to go ahead. I was involved because I was on the Community Reference Committee who was supposed to be overseeing the project.
Right.
But as I say, once we were told the information wasn't public, we just let it drop. Nothing more ever came back to us.
Do you know what was found around here?
No, that's what they wouldn't tell us.
There was a concern that if there were significant findings here, that if it was publicised, then people would be digging up remains, or I think that was the key concern.
I don't know. Maybe they've found things and done everything that was required of them at that time, but maybe they've removed some things from here.
Okay.
When there's so much silence, you're left to interpret, aren't you?
Yes, that's the problem.
What do you believe is going on there?
I don't know if they want the truth to come out to old people, what's haunting, a lot of people getting haunted up in that area now, around Meetung itself, and I think it might put them to rest by all this coming out because it was all hushed up. And no one knew about it, not any of our people. That's, Vince, I'll be pleased when it's out in the open, mate,
I think too often we discount what Aboriginal elders tell us in this culture simply because they're Aboriginal old people. To me, that is not a good enough reason to not believe what is being said. These people have a wisdom and a capacity to represent reality in a storytelling form, which I think is unique and ought to be listened to, because the rest of the world is just interested in sort of rational 1 + 1 = 2 sort of discourse. And I think that flattens the world and makes it much less complex. Whereas what these old fellas are talking about is a bigger, wider and deeper and more expansive and complex world. And I think that's actually the truth. So let's listen to it and go with it and see where it leads us. What have we got to lose?
I know it's true, you know, it did happen there, you know. And there's no way I'll ever forget it, you know. Yeah, there was a lot of terrible men on horseback out here. Dole, 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 dole. Just mowing the old people and the young ones down. And tying rope around them and taking them down to that big lagoon down there and that one over there, you know. Yeah, and that's the truth. It'll always stay with me, you know. It always will, Vinny. Yeah, no matter what. It did happen.